What's up, Nerfers?
What's up?
Joe, jamming out to our intro music. Might be the last time we hear that entry music. This is kind of our last episode before, like, one of our last episodes, maybe until we like jump into. For me, I'm moving. We have been quiet for a little bit. We're like restructuring. We're coming up with a new plan. We're coming up with new content ideas, and we're going to execute them. So we took a little break around the holidays, and then we're like, "Fuck it, we're going to extend it until that's over, and then we'll talk about Boba Fett." And it's been kind of hurting not talking to you at length about Boba Fett because I got a lot of shit to talk.
I know, man. I know.
Oh,
I've been trying to like not let it just destroy
Piss
me,
you
but then Maddie wanted to watch it, so we started. I've started it over with her this week, and we just made it through it all, and she's watching the finale right now. So all of my issues are fresh. Although I will say on second watch, I noticed some things that I will give praise to. But yeah, if you can sense the tone in my voice, I'm not the biggest fan of it. But I figured we could do a spoiler-free version of this review, and then we do spoilers. So
it makes sense.
Here, we aren't going to go right out the gate with spoilers.
Yeah, obviously, because we're coming out like this is the same day as the finale actually came out. So you're safe for now. We will definitely put the banner up and give you a warning when we start jumping into spoilers. So just be wary if you're watching this point. But yeah, we'll make a very clear cutoff point before we decide to jump into talking spoilers. Okay, all right, sweet. I'm digging this one. This one's looking good. It's looking nice and clean. Dig it.
Simple.
So actually, I'm gonna save that for spoiler talk because it really, like, I feel like that point that I was going to make would probably lend itself better when I don't have to worry about not talking spoilers. So spoiler free, I guess. Let's just start by like initial impressions, because it's this is a tough. So the point that I was going to make is that there's a certain expectation around the character of Boba Fett that people have grown to like. I mean, the show is basically like the confirmation, and it gave us like the exact storyline that we all expected we were going to see when he died in Return of the Jedi. They're like, no, Boba Fett's too much of a badass. That isn't going to happen. And then of course the Mandalorian let loose that was actually the case. Like, he did not die. He got out exactly the way we expected him to. He's going to crawl his way out of the Sarlacc pit. And now we have a show specifically around Boba Fett. And my expectations were dashed pretty hard. My expectation for the show did go in a completely different direction than what they ended up doing. And I'm not happy about it because they really weren't even close to what I was hoping for. In a lot of different ways. And the show itself, not necessarily as a result of all those expectations that people had, but it seems like it was just more of a scramble. Like, because we have different directors for the Mandalorian episodes. Like, that was a very common thing. And but everything still felt cohesive. Like, we were telling one story, we're going through really well. This show had the same treatment. It had multiple directors, but it really didn't seem to come out as cohesive this time around. This show really felt like just a big scrambled mess. Not necessarily knowing what to do with all those expectations that people had about Boba Fett's character. I would argue that Dave Filoni had more time with Boba Fett than even George Lucas did, because he handled so much of his character in the Clone Wars. But a very different character than what we've all known to see. Is like he was becoming the notorious bounty hunter at that point. And so, like, my hopes were, I mean, honestly, I think everybody's hopes who saw Clone Wars and enjoyed it were even higher. And I'm interested to start it was like I haven't watched reviews yet. I haven't seen what other people are thinking about this show. I haven't watched any like mid-show reviews. So I'm excited to see what other like really hardcore Star Wars fans are thinking about this show. And I mean, I'm making a prediction. I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of disappointed people out there. While saying that, there are redeeming moments. There's a lot of good redeeming qualities about the show. There's some great moments with Tamara Morrison. There's some great moments with Ming-Na Wen. There's great moments with plenty of other characters, but like it was because it was so scrambled. Those great moments were they weren't necessarily enough to bring this show up to what I would have hoped, especially for the first actual like Star Wars show surrounding a character from like the original trilogy, like who had so much history already. I don't know. It felt kind of like a fumble. It felt like a fumble overall.
Well, I think you know, Kathleen Kennedy, Jon Favreau, and the people in charge of these of modern Star Wars, I think they just did. They just shot themselves in the foot. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
when we heard that Obi-Wan was having his own show, everybody got so excited. Well, then that show got massively delayed because it turns out the scripts were so similar to the first season of The Mandalorian. A prominent, awesome character taking care of a small child. Well, Obi-Wan taking care of Luke. It turns out the scripts for the original season of Obi-Wan was pretty much like very, very similar. So they had to go back to the drawing board and redraw it. So I think that is part of the issue here because we already had 2 seasons of a badass bounty hunter Mandalorian. And yes, while everybody was watching this, in the back of hardcore fans' minds were, when are they going to show us Boba Fett, the original badass Mandalorian bounty hunter from the original trilogy that we've all wondered, did he survive? Is he ever going to get justice? It was on the tip of our tongues, was in the back of our minds for both seasons. Finally, they revealed him. And then they said, oh, guess what? He's going to get his own series. At the same time that season 2 of Mando was coming out, there were rumors that everything was kind of tense on set. Everybody from the lead actor to the crew wanted a break. And so there was a theory that Boba Fett, while they had planned to do some content around him, this show was purposely made to give the Mando crew a break. Meaning that they did a lot of hard work on the script, on the story for Mando, and they kind of threw this together to give the Mando people a break. And that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like a mesh between that theory and the idea that they already wrote a show about a badass bounty hunter Mandalorian. So how could they make this different? And so they decided, well, we're gonna adjust his character. But before we get into that, I just want to read you the description that they gave us for this show originally.
Right. Oh
Because
boy.
before this show
Oh
came
boy.
out, the last thing we saw in it was like the end credits of the final episode of season 2 of Mandalorian was Boba Fett killing what's his face, Bid Fortuna, and taking over that throne, and that epic shot of him sitting on the throne and Fennec taking a drink on his arm of the chair. And we got on the sands of Tatooine, the legendary bounty hunter Boba Fett navigates the underworld of the galaxy with mercenary Fennec Shan. When they return to stake their claim on the territory formerly ruled by deceased crime lord Jabba the Hutt. And so when people heard that, they're like, all right, bounty hunter turned crime lord. He's going to sit on that throne. He's going to take what he wants. And a lot of people went into this, not to mention the trailers also very heavy towards that, towards the new crime lord is here. Tatooine is a crime ridden place, and this dude is the new crime lord, and he's gonna Godfather vibes, mafia vibes.
I'm glad you said that.
This is the Mandal. You don't mess with him, and I don't think it's unfair to suggest that people came in with that kind of expectation, because that was what was sold to us. I know the excuse nowadays is, well, you shouldn't have brought in your expectations to a show or a movie. I agree with that to an extent, but posters, descriptions, and trailers do sell a product. And when that product turns out to be different, then I think it's okay for a fan to notice that difference and be like, hey, that's not okay. And I get it. Fine. If you want to change things up, great. But again, before we get into spoilers, I just feel like somehow this had the same writing crew as The Mandalorian, and it just felt rushed. It didn't feel like as much thought, as much time went into this. The most money was put in the last 3 episodes, and we'll get into why. And it's one of those things, like, it's got some good stuff in it, but the overall plot and the writing is so weak that the more you think about it, the more it doesn't make sense. And when you're watching it, it doesn't make sense,
And I'm sure that you've dug into the behind the scenes stuff, because I haven't gotten into that, but you're generally better about that.
I mean, they haven't released much for this show, but I still feel like that behind the scenes stuff from Mando and that bleeding into this, it feels like it. But like you said, there's good things about this show. There's some really cool visuals. There's some really cool set pieces. I did really like some characters. I liked some ideas. There was a lot of stuff that we can't talk about spoiler wise, but there's just a lot of stuff that they brought over. Dave Filoni's continuing to do what he does best, bringing characters from other shows to better blend the universe. And unlike Mando, where I was always complaining about us going back to the same planets, there was a reason why we were on Tatooine. That's where Jabba's palace was.
Yeah.
So but at the same time, they gave us different sets. They gave us different areas, and there are some good things about the show. I did like the actors. I did like a lot of the sets. And I did like a couple of the directors that they chose to be on the show. There were some very shining moments. And overall, it's another piece in Star Wars lore, and it's hard to like just say, oh, it's trash, because it's Star Wars, and right, I think there have been worse entries in the Star Wars franchise than this, but I do believe that there were some mistakes in this show.
My biggest praise comes down to probably man, it's really hard to do this without talking spoilers. I have to give them praise for making the attempt at fan service that we had all been asking for long time, like decades. Like, they took a stab at it. The thing that I'm not angry. I'm not calling it trash or anything like that. I got that horrible problem where my belt's catching belly hair. That was horribly painful. If you know, you know. It's always risky when you're diving into an endeavor where the expectations are super high. It's especially heavy when, like, you can almost consider this like a Boba Fett reboot. Like, if you really wanted to come down to it, it's like we're talking very few years after Return of the Jedi, the events of Return of the Jedi, which in a lot of Star Wars fans' minds is like the end of the Star Wars canon, because the latest sequel trilogy was just like, they're done with it. And that like there were already a bunch of conspiracy theories out there about how like the sequel trilogies are in an alternate timeline, and like the future show content that they're coming out with is going to be showcasing like what really happens with the canon, like because like Star Wars has thrown canon away before, like they threw away the extended universe, they made it all legends
when
like
Disney bought it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Disney is like, well, okay, we pissed everybody off, so we're just gonna like do whatever we want and just say, here, Dave, do what you're gonna do. But and so expectations were high. Expectations were crazy high. Like they're honestly they met some of my expectations. There were a few pieces where I was like, okay, I'm happy with this, and then they would tank it again later. So like super upsetting. Like honestly, like if I had to come up with one word for this series, it's underwhelming. Like underwhelming is kind of like the best factor for it. It had its peaks. Like don't get me wrong, it had its peaks, but the valleys were vastly like longer across that than the peaks were. And it was like the peaks looked like heart rate monitor blips, and then the valleys were just like a dead dude like hanging out there. Like there's just so much valley, not nearly enough peak. I was like, once they peaked, they didn't plateau at all. They were like, all right, we're gonna bring it all the fucking way down to like the worst part of what you thought about this show, and then later we'll give you some blips again. Like, and honestly, my biggest worry around the future of Star Wars content is that it's going to be stuff like this, where the best stuff about it is the stuff that's like purely fan service, because they just don't like. I don't want to say that they don't know what to do with these characters, because Dave Filoni has proven time and time again that he knows what to do with a Star Wars character. He knows what to do with a Star Wars story. But like, I don't know, maybe like if you get too many cooks in the kitchen, if you get too many people on top of it, I don't know how long Dave Filoni was in his new position as like, I think is like creative director or something like that. I don't know how long he was in that position when Book of Boba Fett was filming. Like with COVID, I don't know how long they were actually done with like that part, or how far into the writing they had gotten, how involved he actually was able to be. But I also don't want to be like, all right, Filoni has given us so many good things, like I'm going to let this one slide. It's like, no, you fucked up. You pissed us off, and you need to know this. And it's like, you're not going to win them all. Like I'm not gonna like tank my support for Star Wars at this point. Like it certainly doesn't merit, like the performance of the show certainly doesn't merit anything extreme like that. But yeah, like we need to hold the creators of our franchises, like they're our franchises. Like they don't have them if we're not watching. They don't have them if we're not doing that. And it's like we need to hold them up to that higher standard, because I'm afraid that the future of Star Wars content is just going to be more weak writing around extreme fan service when it involves characters that we're already familiar with, at least. Because I mean, they did a great job with Mando. It was like unknown, like for the most part, no franchise favorite characters until later on. And even then, they're like, all right, we're gonna keep it light. Honestly, that's the way to do it. Other than that, they've done an excellent job, and they showcase that in this show again, that they know how to like they know how to bring about an interesting character. Unfortunately, it just wasn't to the degree that I would have expected for at this point.
Yeah, I think Doug Holmes says he agrees. I think,
I hope that was a reset. Like, what was that? I can't see when the comments. I can't see when the comments kick in. So, I'm glad you agree, though.
I don't believe we're ever. I'm not one of those entitled. We're owed something, but I believe that we can hold creators accountable, and I think especially since this was the same, just like any creator, just like when Dark Knight Rises came out, and people were like, okay, this is good. It's not as good as the Dark Knight, but Christopher Nolan, it's good. But they were saying it's not as good. Just like something like that, I feel like it's fair that we can look at Book of Boba Fett, which came supposedly from the same crew that did Mando, and say it's good, but it's not as good. It's not as tight. It's not as thought out. It's not as rich. and the money is lacking, and in I would say 4 of the 7 episodes, the money is drastically lacking. It's more noticeable, and I just think overall it felt like the writing was less to me. But I want to get into spoilers so we can talk specific
I do too.
praises and
I do too.
specific concerns, because I do have specific praises. I just don't want to get into those in spoiler free. So, as a Star Wars fan, I say, hey, watch this. There's certainly worse things out there, but as a fan of Boba Fett and as a fan of the original trilogy, and as someone who, since I was a kid, was like, man, I would love to know more about Boba. It feels like A, it's too little too late, and B, they wanted to change the character too much, and I think it backfired, in my opinion. But are you ready to talk spoilers?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right, so
I absolutely am. So this is going to be your warning. Oh wow, okay, we all right. I was going to say, I was like, we should warn before we change the splash screen there.
My bad.
Do we have our spoilers?
It's clear as day now. Spoiler review.
Well, if somebody comes across this in the thumbnail, scrolling across YouTube Live or Facebook Live, they're going to be a little pissed off. But how to be a crime lord for dummies. Wow, brutal.
There's a lot going on, and there's so much more in this show that's not even on there. This show called The Book of Boba Fett.
But wait a second. Here I was at the beginning of this episode saying, there's going to be a clear demarcation point between when we decide to talk spoilers and when we don't. And then you fucking throw this splash screen up before you've even gotten that chance.
Sorry.
What the fuck,
man? We said, I said, are you ready?
I was ready for spoilers. Yes. If somebody was watching, they should have had at least a reasonable amount of,
at least a couple of seconds.
I want to kick this off with the point that I was going to make. Okay. Like, there were some very high expectations that people had for Boba Fett as a character. I am not in that group. Most of the memories that I have when I originally saw Boba Fett's character, honestly, he felt like I remember him being like a henchman. Now, I was very young at the time, but I thought of him as a henchman. That feeling kind of continued throughout like more recent rewatches, but I was also my viewing of it was kind of sullied by other people's expectations or other people's predictions for that character. Not even predictions. It's just the way that other people felt about Boba Fett's character. Like, oh, he's the most badass character. Like he was on screen for like 4 seconds in the original trilogy.
Right. He died with a Wilhelm scream, so he can't have been that crazy.
Yeah. He died with a Wilhelm scream by getting bumped into by a blind guy. Like, and he had a jetpack. Like,
it was definitely the lore, not the screen time, that made him a badass.
Yeah. It wasn't until I like dug into like deeper Star Wars content, which was Legends, comics, stuff like that, Clone Wars especially, where like you really start to get a buildup for who Boba Fett actually is and who he can't and who he could have been in this show. So for some people, I feel like there's gonna, like, when they see this show and they see him as this character who's like trying to not necessarily redeem himself, but kind of like turn a corner and be like, hey, like, and he did say it. Like, there was a moment in this show where he's just like, I'm tired of working for scum. Like, it's not great work. It was handled so messily. My expectation for this show when we were going into it, I had kind of a 50-50 thing going on. I really wanted to see the crime lord side of him. I really wanted to see that come out. I didn't think that Tatooine was the right venue for it. I figured it would have been a great jump off point, but I really wanted to see him go to Nar Shaddaa or one of the other, or like Hutta, and like really get into the dirt of being like trying to like, for one, account for like just murking Bib Fortuna and being like, hey, I'm taking over, and like staking his claim and like making it real, and then having like kind of like those Godfather moments. It's like, you don't understand the depths I'm willing to go down to. Like, I will fuck you all up. The other side of me wanted to see kind of like a Red Dead Redemption play on it. And so if you're not familiar with Red Dead Redemption, first of all, get familiar, because it's an excellent game series. There's 2 games in it, and I mean, it for the most part, you're following an outlaw who, I mean, you're allowed to make decisions based on how this character's story ends, but it's really an outlaw who's the most recent iteration, which is Red Dead Redemption 2. You're playing an outlaw who is in a world where there's not really a lot of room for outlaws anymore, and trying to like live life through that. And without getting into too terrible many spoilers in there is a redeeming moment for him. And I mean, it doesn't end great for him, but at the same time it does. Like I expected to see some sacrifices that he might have to make, which is difficult with Boba Fett because he's been a lone wolf for so long. You're like, well, what kind of connections is he going to make? I felt like they were going in that direction when we saw him with Fennec Shand. And we saw him like establishing these new relationships, and we saw him establishing the relationships with the Sand People. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. We're seeing something here. And so like, I didn't really know what to expect because like my 50-50 hopes were kind of like being met at the initial points, like in the early parts of the episode where like we were seeing kind of both sides of it, but like it was leaning more towards the redemption side of it than it was the crime lord side, because the crime lord side was really weak. Like in the early episodes, I didn't give a fuck about like the modern day. Like I was way more interested in the Tusken Raiders and the life that he was having to do with them, because like that was a subset of people in the Star Wars universe that we didn't see a lot of. And I haven't dug deep on stuff like a little bit, but not nearly enough. Because and I'm realizing that now after seeing this show and being like, I'm actually really interested in their culture and like kind of how they go. Like we even got a little bit of history of Tatooine. Like it wasn't always a desert, which I think people had already talked about at one point. But like that's pretty impressive because there's Star Wars content that's thousands of years old where it's been a desert planet for thousands of years. It's like, wow, okay. So this is an ancient civilization that has been on this planet for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And then we're seeing this deeper side of them, and then we're cutting into him being like a lame duck crime lord, and I'm like, well, fuck, man, like you got to stop pulling me into this stuff. And that was kind of where the mess came from for me. It was like, you guys, it really felt like, first of all, it was like the first few episodes they were playing it like Arrow, where like, all right, we got to see his flashbacks. We got to see him, why he is the way he is now. It's like, we didn't need to see why he is the way he is now. And it's like, honestly, after seeing this full show, I really didn't need the Tusken Raider stuff in there at all if they were going to go the direction that they did. If they were going to make the Tuskens far more important than they actually did, like, i.e. not wiping all of them out, like having them be some of the reinforcements, and also like having him to kind of have to deal with like other people being like, all right, they're Tusken Raiders, they're savages. It's like, no, they're not. Like I've lived with these people. And it was like, I'm a ruthless bastard and I can see the good in these, in this civilization, shit like that. No, none of that. We're going to wipe him out. We're going to have Boba have the slightest moment of badassery by like wiping the bikers out and be like, all right, that's his moment of hate. He's like, fuck it. I was like, I was going to have a redemption, and then screw it. I'm going to be a crime lord. And then he decides, no, I'm going to rule for peace. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to rule with respect. I'm going to give a bunch of people second chances. I'm going to give people who were like fucking up, and another dude who tried to kill me, a job.
Okay.
Just so many directions, didn't know what to do with it. And I really want to know I want to know what your thoughts were at this point. I'll just kind of bounce from there.
I feel like too much of this show was, oh, you thought you knew this about insert. It's actually this. So, oh, you thought Boba Fett was a ruthless killer. Actually, he's a man who loves animals, wants peace, and is constantly haunted by the memory of seeing his father fly off. They show every time is in the BAFTA tank, they show this one scene of him as a child running to the window and seeing his father fly off. And I'm like, is this ever going to develop anything? Or are we just going to see this scene again and again and again for time filler? But no. So You thought he was a ruthless bounty hunter? No, he's a nice guy that loves animals and that wants to rule as a peaceful ruler. You thought the Tuscan Raiders were savage creatures that lived in the desert and will kill you for no good reason, as they have in the past. Were you pod racing? Oh, we're sorry, they're shooting at you. Were you walking in the desert with old man Obi-Wan? Oh, we're sorry, they're trying to kill you. And this, nope, they are a misunderstood native people that Boba Fett gets taken into and becomes part of their tribe, a la
and are
Dancing with
totally
Wolves style.
and are totally not a rip off of the Fremen from Dune
Oh, there's
at
a
all.
reason I'm wearing this shirt. There's so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
I mean, there's so much Dune in this show. You thought Rancors were these savage creatures. Actually, they're very loving and loyal creatures that will imprint on you like a baby in the Twilight series and will be loyal to you forever if you're just
Oh,
kind
you
to
went
it.
there.
And they'll even let you ride it. Doug Holmes says, I wondered why he even wanted to be a crime lord. He didn't seem too interested in ruling.
So
I
did Cad
agree.
Bane. Like Cad Bane had that excellent question. Is like, what's your angle? It's like, yes,
Right.
fucking now, Boba. Tell me
Because-
what your angle is.
And every time I bring that up too, people throw in the 5-second scene in my face when he's sitting at a fire with Finnick saying, I'm
Yeah.
tired of being a lackey for people that are dumber than me. Like he makes it sound like if I was in their shoes, I could do it better. But then literally from the get-go, we see that he can't. And that's what's most frustrating about this, because in the few moments that we did see him in the original trilogy, he was clever. He was smart. He was a strategist. He had tact. You know, he knew that Han Solo was in the trash, and he knew that that's how he was going to escape, and he waited so that he could follow. There were things that he did that showed you that he had an intelligent mind. But when he just comes on the scene, kills Bid Fortuna, and says, now I'm here, every single decision that he makes past that point seems reactionary. It seems like he has no plan whatsoever. And even Fennec is like, you are not cut out for this. You know, like
it didn't make
what
sense.
What are you doing?
Like,
why? Every time he does something, she says, why would you do that? You know, and it
he has
doesn't
such an
make
extensive
sense.
history. He has such an extensive history working for these people.
For these people.
Yeah, like you would think that he would, and Jabba especially is like, you think he would understand at least somewhat of the Outer Rim culture, at least on Tatooine, or at least an introductory level of it. It's like, dude, you know how ruthless these guys are. You have to understand that you're not going to be able to bust in onto the scene and play like happy-go-lucky about it and think that they're not going to respond. Like when he made the announcement to the crime bosses, like we're not going in chronological order here, I don't give a shit. When he made the offer to the crime bosses and he was like, hey, let's, like, I really don't want you to be involved in this pike war that I'm about to get into. It's like, you guys, if you don't want to get involved, that's fine. But if the pikes come to you, you must remain neutral. And they're all like, yeah, sure, fine. I'm like, dude, they're fucking crime lords, man. And it's like, as soon as the pikes show up and offer them 2 cents, they're gonna be like, yeah, sure, fuck that guy. Like he's clearly, like, he's asking us for neutrality. Is like, this guy's a pussy. We're gonna walk right over him.
So like, I want to talk about the pike situation, because I mean, we could talk all day about easy, stupid stuff like the biker. What am I trying to show here? The biker gang from Power Rangers
that screen didn't show up on there too terrible well, but yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you're talking about.
All of the
fucking
Robert
Vespa
Rodriguez inserts from the Spy Kids universe. We could talk about easy lows like that, but I want to talk about the Pikes, the other crime lords, Tatooine in general. When we are presented with Tatooine, it's presented to us as a crime-ridden place. It's a hard place to live, but people live there. There's crime all over. At no point, like, they don't show that the Pikes are torturing people or that the Pikes are killing people. Obviously, the spice is an allegory for drugs or whatever. But
It
they
is.
don't.
It's a drug
But
in
they.
that universe. It's a drug in the Star Wars universe.
But this is Disney. They don't show people,
No, no.
getting high. They don't show. They don't show anything. They don't show any people suffering under crime. Like they don't give you constantly, especially in the later half of the show. Boba is like, these are my people. This is my city. I'm not going to abandon them. And I kept saying, well, who the fuck wanted you to begin with? Like, who are you? And what have you brought into these people than more trouble? Like, the war on the streets, the damage, the deaths, the bombings is all because of Boba, not because of these other crime lords. Before Boba came on the scene, they all seemed to be there and nobody cared. So
Yeah,
the
so
show
we're
didn't do a good job in showing why we needed a peaceful ruler, why we needed somebody to save these people. He kept on saying, I'm the savior. And I kept on wanting somebody to come out of their house and being, no one asked for you and no one wanted you. Please go away. Because it
it's
didn't
a
make
big
sense
problem. It's a big problem because what we the bigger picture is that you've brought about a show where you've got a ruthless badass reputation bounty hunter coming to a crime-ridden world, supposedly crime-ridden world. Like, our extensive history with it is not crime-ridden. Like, you saw Tatooine,
CD bar, and that's about it. Yeah,
you saw a CD bar in Mos Eisley on Tatooine. You saw it was Imperial occupied, like it was Empire occupied. It wasn't even really like the Wild West at the point of around the Battle of Yavin. You saw it in the prequel trilogy, and you just knew that there was like a big gambling issue. The Hutts were controlling it. Like, not too terrible much there. You saw it a couple times in the Clone Wars, but I mean, during the Clone Wars, it's like, yeah, it's actually at war. We understand that, but even then, it wasn't really that big of a fucking thing. You're bringing a bounty hunter of all people, who's also a ruthless badass or a simple man just trying to make his way in the galaxy, which we also didn't see. Like his famous moniker, and we don't see that. You're bringing a bounty hunter of all people to a planet, trying to tell us that he's going to be bringing peace when there is absolutely no evidence of a war.
Yeah, no evidence of non-peace. Like,
yeah,
yes,
there's not a single moment where you saw
affecting the people. Yeah,
you never saw the Skid Row of Tatooine where people are like overdosing on spice. You never actually saw anybody die or any problem caused by. The only people we saw die to spice were the people that were the Pikes that Cobb Vanth shot. And then then you have the line from Boba Fett saying, "Spice is killing our people. I don't want it here." It's like, who
says who? Right.
It's like, your main connection. Like, honestly, the spice trade shouldn't have been the thing. It was like, he should have, like, the Nikto speed bikers shouldn't have been involved in this at all. Should have been the Pikes. The Pikes were the ones who were running spice dude. The Pikes were the ones who were killing off sand people.
Don't just tell us in one line.
Yeah, show us. Replace the Nikto speed bikers with Pikes. He then knows, it's like, all right, these people who took me in, they're helping me out. They killed him off. Pikes are also like the main problem between me and being like the crime lord of Tatooine. I was like, so he's working it from multiple different angles, but with the same goal. The Pikes are the villain at that point. And then he gets into his role, and he sees Mos Espa going around as just this drug-ridden area with this like one mayor who has this connection to the club.
Unfair living conditions. The only person that complained to him was a guy that was scamming people anyway. We never saw one regular citizen down on their luck. We saw nothing. Open markets. We saw a casino. We saw people walking freely in the streets. There was never the gist of man, you came here just in time because things are getting tense and it's unsafe to be here. And you know what? We don't need another crime lord. We need a defender. And Boba says, you know what? That's going to be me. We didn't get any of that. We just got Boba claiming that these are my people.
The
Says
thing that
who?
makes the
Why?
thing that makes me the most mad, the thing that makes me the most mad is that the moment where they had like I thought we were gonna see it. It was like because you had Office Space guy show up being like, "Hey, they're stealing my water.
Mm-hmm.
I've got this problem here," and then you're supposed to show us these street rats who are like struggling to survive, and it's a bunch of fucking cybernetically decked out like teenagers or
With
like
the
early 20s
fanciest bikes
with the
on the planet,
fanciest speeders I've ever seen on Tatooine of any
the most
kind. Like,
colorful things in the show,
yeah,
and
they can
they're
afford
poor.
all of these. They can afford all of these cybernetics. They can afford all these individual speed, like these color coordinated fucking speeders. And you're going to tell me that those are the people on Tatooine that have it the worst off? And I was like, they all looked pretty well off to me. And I was like, really, those are the people who were really struggling here. I was like, no, this show should have always been especially now during a time where fentanyl is running rampant across the
Mm,
United States.
mm.
Massive problem. Heroin overdoses, opiate overdoses. The opiate crisis is alive and well in this country. And you have a moment where you can connect to like one of the best things that Game of Thrones, any other fantasy series did was connect the issues in those worlds with like real world issues that we were running into, like in modern life at the time. And I was like, and the best moment that you had for that, you're like, nope, fuck it, Power Rangers, cybernetic kids. Like, I
Because
could not believe the call. I could not
because
believe that.
that was the point of the major the overall umbrella issue with this show is there's so many adult themes in the show in terms of the spice drugs, in terms of the bounty hunters, the assassins, the crime lords, the gladiators, but it's a overly PG show to the
Oh
point
yeah,
where
really bad neutered.
they don't want blood, they don't want anything. You have Black Chrysanthemum with his just badass Wookiee gladiator going around with electrified brass fucking spiked knuckles. And when he punches somebody, there's not even a scratch on their face. Like if I had brass knuckles with 2-inch spikes and I punched you, even a tap, it's gonna tear your face up. And he straight up, there's a
And he's a
scene
Wookiee.
there.
Like a
He's a
Wookiee would take
Wookiee.
somebody's head off with a fucking thing like that.
Think of the one of the opening scenes of Han Solo. It was literally Chewie tearing people apart in the mud pits, and you have a gladiator Wookiee going up against a naked Boba Fett in one scene, punching him in the face with spiked knuckles, biting his neck, throwing him across the room, and Boba doesn't have a scratch on him because they don't want to show blood. You've got Boba's guards with these big ass swords cutting people down, no blood. I mean, there's hardly any death, and the only death that there is mostly explosions, so you don't
Mhm.
see anything. This this
To be
this
to be
show,
fair, to be fair, Star Wars has an extensive history of like the weaponry that they have not causing injuries like that.
the first
Um,
the first Star Wars we got had a very bloody disarming
yeah,
scene in the
for
first
sure.
15 minutes.
But from
I'm
that
not
point
saying this
on,
has to be rated R. I'm just saying it's so dumbed
the violence
down
was very neutered for
because
sure.
they don't want they're not here about good crime stories. They're here to sell you
No.
toys. They
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
toys out of this. I mean, we're gonna get into the finale here in a bit because there's so
I
much of
saw
the
pop
finale
figures. I saw
that
major spoiler pop figures out like
yeah.
before like even shit like
But
before the
there
finale is out. I was like, fuck
so
me, man.
so there's a turn in this season. The first 4 episodes, I think 2 or 3 of them were directed by Robert Rodriguez, and you could tell because they were Spy Kids, and they were Spy Kids ridden.
I don't understand why he's like
I
his
mean,
episode was like the weakest in like The
he
Mandalorian too. It
directed
was
at
like,
least 2 or 3 episodes in this show, and they were very kid friendly. They were very brightly oriented. Danny Trejo was in this for some reason. They were very, again, with like the Arrow thing, there were flashbacks. Instead of an Arrow, you got more of the present storyline with these little flashbacks. In the first 4 episodes of Boba Fett, you got so much flashbacks, you're like, why are we even doing this? Why didn't you just spend the first 2 episodes just do it in chronological order instead of doing 95% of a flashback and then it flashes forward and you're like, oh, we've progressed 2 minutes in the current storyline.
He's listed as the executive producer and showrunner for all 7 episodes.
Well, I believe it because this was so much the Robert Rodriguez show. But there was a turn in this show, and after 4 episodes of people like, when is this show going to pick up? Like, when are we going to get a badass moment? And then in walks Mando. And we realize that leading more credence to that theory of we needed some filler between seasons 2 and 3 of Mando. All of a sudden, it's the Mando show. Like, it's not even, fuck you if you're one of the, I saw a couple reviewers saying we needed episode 5 to explain why and how Mando got back to Boba Fett. We did not need a full hour to show. You could have shown one scene and then he gets a call from Fennec. You did not need a whole premiere episode of season 3 of Boba Fett in the middle, or season 3 of Mandalorian in the middle of a Boba Fett show. That was clearly, we're bored with the Boba story. Let's get back to Mando. And with the exception of 30 seconds at the end of it, it had nothing to do with Boba Fett.
So and it also was extremely rushed itself. Like there was a good episode, but there was some heavy shit in there that like his moment with the other Mandalorians was like, like,
you can tell the purpose.
You took your helmet off, you're fucked, gone.
It was setting up season 3. It had nothing to do with this show. It was setting up season 3. And then does episode 6 get back to the Boba show? No, it's the second episode of the 3rd season of Mandalorian in which he goes and meets Grogu. The whole point of season 2 of Mando was, I need to get him back to the Jedi. He needs to be with his own people. And I truly believe the only reason they did this in Mandalorian, in Boba Fett, is because people would have complained if in the first 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, he gets Grogu back. People would have been like, well, then season 2 was pointless. But if they do it in another show, then that's not a complaint against The Mandalorian. That's a complaint against Boba Fett. So
it's still kind of pointless.
It is pointless. It's still pointless. But here's a praise I'll give it though, because there are some praises in this show. Me and you both kind of freaked out when Luke Skywalker showed up at the end of season 2 of Mando.
Yeah, I was in tears.
I think a lot of people were like, okay, the CGI, it's better than it is in the movies, which is crazy. It's crazy that it's better on TV than in the movies. But we even watched a video on YouTube of a guy that said, I could do this better than Disney. Yeah. And apparently Disney saw that and they hired him.
Hired him.
Good job. Because this, while there's still some uncanny moments, this
massively
was so
better.
Massively Maddie better. Watched it today, and even she was, as soon as he started moving, like she saw him just like sitting there, and she was like, huh. And then he moved, and she goes, oh. And she was like, she was pinned. Like she put her phone down, and she was like, this is good. And I was like, really, yeah.
It was really interesting that they decided to have a lot of his dialogue be like with him off camera. Because they knew that was probably going to be an issue where it was really tough. I thought that the eyes were like a lot better, because that's normally where you spot stuff like that, is that the eyes just look funky as hell. They did a massively better job with him.
Not to mention he was in bright environments most of the time. He was in the shadows where they could hide stuff. Like they
had him running around.
They had him running around and walking around. Lightsaber. They had him, there was so much of Luke, and it was astounding. And you were like, "Oh, this is where the money went," because there's so much in those first couple episodes, especially like with the chase scenes that felt like a bunch of elderly scooters driving slowly down a street. and you're like, where's the money? And you're like, oh, this is where the money went in the Mando episodes.
Honestly, it was another couple episodes where I was like, these belong in different shows. Like even that one, it belonged in a different show. It was like, I'll get to how I fix this later. I've hinted at it a little bit already, but I'll do my thing. I'll be like, how does Seth fix this? And get, like, fuck, man, I wish they were watching this fucking thing, so I could be like, I could be the next YouTuber that they're like, oh, we're gonna hire him to fucking help out with this shit.
Yeah.
It belonged in a different show. I don't care if it's in Mandalorian season 3. Definitely not the first 2 episodes, but he's like, hey, like that needed to be a parallel. Like when they had the Mandalorians kick him out in this show, I was like, fine. Like that gives us a point now, so where we don't have to have it explained why he's doing it in the first episode of his next series. His first episode in
the opening scene. We didn't need that whole episode. We could have had that, and then Finnick is like, hey, I need you. And he leaves and goes to Finnick.
Yeah. And he's like, well, I don't have my own clan to worry about now. I was like, fuck it, we'll take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
God, I'm just getting pissed. The next bit of praise that I'll give it is that they showed us again that they know what to do with these characters. I loved seeing Ahsoka again. I loved that she was there with Luke and it wasn't fucking crazy awkward. Like clearly there's been a conversation that I want to see. I want to see their first meeting so fucking bad. So bad I want to see their first meeting. Like, because that's important. That's a very important thing. And they've established that there's a history there. And I'm like, yes, I really need to see that. Maybe
we'll get that in an Ahsoka show, like a flashback.
Maybe. Like we would have to, honestly. Like we really kind of have to. It's like, because there's more training that Luke needs to get. And it's like, and who better? Honestly, who better to give him that? Like, and he even kind of played it in the show. It was like, will I see you again? It was like, she probably has been training him. She's probably been helping him out a little bit.
Maybe.
It's like, but yeah, like she sees him as the person who defeated Darth Vader, the thing that she couldn't do. It was like, yeah, all right. Like Grogu is safe as he could ever be here with Luke Skywalker. So there's an established history there. And like, that was what we wanted to see. Like that was what needed to be there.
Has nothing to do with Boba. This is
has nothing to do with Boba.
For the Mandalorian.
They know what we want. And they really wanted to give it to. They wanted to give it to us like immediately. It was like they didn't want to make us wait for it. It was like, you guys made us wait for so many other things in the Star Wars universe. I would have happily waited longer to see. I would have happily waited until December of this year to see the scenes with Luke and Grogu play out the way that they should have been.
Do a prologue holiday special in between as a teaser or something, but.
Not even that. Like, just give it to us in the show. The entire series. You've got Mando struggling to try and find his way back to his people.
Yeah.
And you've got Grogu struggling to find his way back to his person while abandoning the thing that he thought his life was going to be set to. And it's like, and then the finale of the show has something to do with like Luke recognizing this threat, or better yet, Ahsoka being like, hey, your father turned because he couldn't be with the people that he loved. Maybe the Jedi way isn't exactly the best way to do that. I'm not a Jedi anymore. Like there needs to be some things that change a little bit. And then Luke gives him that moment, but no, they're like, fuck it. Luke's going to be a diehard Jedi too, even though he has seen what has, like, all the things that have gone wrong with
He's young, though. There's plenty of time
He's
for
young,
him to change.
But he had met with Ahsoka. He had time to kind of like learn from some of that shit. It's like,
there's too much. I don't want to talk about fantasy shows just yet. I want to talk about what we got, because we there's so much that we still haven't talked about in this show. Yeah. And I feel like I really, once they introduced the Pikes, I was like, yes, these were cool characters in the Clone Wars. It's a cool bad guy. But then we just left that story for 2 episodes, went and followed the Mando story, and then came back for the finale of Boba. And I was like, there's a whole half of a story missing here. We only get 7
like
episodes.
3/4 of a story missing from there.
We only get 7 episodes in the Book of Boba Fett. And I swear to you, Seth, when I got up this morning and I opened the app and I watched it, I swear to you, I thought I saw it said series finale of the Book of Boba Fett. When I went back today, this evening with Maddie, it said season. I could have sworn this morning it said series, and I was
preferred it to be the series finale
because if this is season 1, what the hell is season 2? Is it just going to be Boba and Friends, the cameo show? Because literally there was no plot in this show, and then by the time we got to this finale moment, it was just about, there was just too many choices that were about toys. Whether it's the fight, Mando's new ship, which is cool, but as a bounty hunter makes no sense.
Nope.
And the second they showed that she took out the astromech thing and put a little bubble, I was like, he's getting Grogu back.
Grogu's going to be in there.
Show. Like, that's made for nobody else but Grogu. Why are we even acting like he's not coming back? But then the finale, so many things about it made no sense. They wanted it to make sense. They wanted it to be cool. There was a whole moment where they're like, we've got this crew here and this crew here and Black Chrysanthemum here, and we're safe right here. Nobody can get to us. Seconds later, the bad guys are outside knocking on the door. And then seconds later after that, everybody's being taken out. Like, they keep on telling you that these characters are smart, but then their actions show you that they're dumb as hell and that they're way in over their head. And every action scene is nothing but Robert Rodriguez taking his toys and clashing them together. We get these huge astromech droids, they're like giant versions of the ones from the prequels, and when they start they're like tanks. They're walking down the street and I'm like, oh shit, these people are gonna die. And in fact, there's a scene where like 30 of them are running down a double lane street in the middle of the road with no obstruction, and these droids fail to hit any of them.
Dude, there was an open door in the building directly behind them.
They can't shoot anything. Like, and I'm like, oh, that's right. It's a PG Spy Kids show. Nobody can die while they're running away. Like, literally, those droids hit nobody. And then how do you kill the droids? You get a big monster to go King Kong and rip them apart. And that's how you solve it. It is literally just like the director took his Rancor toy and took his astromech toy and did this and said, special effects, do that on the screen. Let's make our. There was literally a point where Mando and Boba are talking, and they're just step 5 steps to the side so we could stay out of his range. Oh, he's turning around. Step 5 steps back to the side, in the middle of the fight, and I'm like, this is the fight. What is this?
Again, underwhelming.
So underwhelming.
They had a great moment where they were both on their jetpacks and they were like wiping the pikes out. They had laid out a distraction. That was good. Like, that was a cool Boba Fett moment where he was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hold up this white flag, but no, it's not real. Like, I'm gonna fuck you guys up. Like, honestly, it was just, yeah. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised to see that Robert Rodriguez did that one. So in the Book of Boba Fett show, he did episode 1, 3, and 7.
And 7. Oh yeah, it's clear he did 7, and it's clear he did 3 because that was the biker gang.
The fucking the Rancor bit was annoying.
Oh, that was a nod to the holiday special when he rode things bigger than a Rancor. The old school cartoon. And I love.
I mean, it was cool to see him riding it. Like, it was satisfying to see him ride in with it. That was his reinforcement.
Danny,
it was like
Trejo saying this is going to take a lot of training and a lot of discipline, and we're going to have to work at this for a long time.
Didn't see it. None of it.
I mean, unless they're trying to say that over the course of those Mando episodes, like months passed or even weeks, it felt like hours.
Really didn't feel like a long time.
So that felt unjustified.
The fucking King Kong moment was so stupid. It was like, we didn't need you to bring this in here just so Grogu could fucking beast charm the goddamn thing and like take a nap next to it. Like I didn't need to see that.
Why couldn't Mando or Mando? Why couldn't Boba just come be like, "Hey, you imprinted on me. Remember? Calm down."
Fucking killed Cad Bane. Like, are you shitting me right now?
We gotta talk about Cad Bane.
You killed Cad Bane in the least satisfying way that you possibly could have for his character. It's like his first return. I was like, this is an old, seasoned, grizzled vet of a fucking badass crime bounty hunter, dude.
Also a new character for many people.
A new character for a lot of people. But man, dude, he was like, he was the highlight of the reveals
6.
of this series. I was like, I wasn't surprised to see Luke. I wasn't surprised to see Grogu. I wasn't surprised to see Mando. Fucking Cad Bane came out of nowhere. I lost my shit. I wish I had recorded my reaction to it. I was going out of my fucking mind.
The look on Cad Bane's face, like fear on the face of Timothy.
Even his silhouette in the distance, he was like, "Oh, don't know about this." Right. Everybody go inside.
Who's wearing a cowboy hat? As soon as I saw the definition of the hat, I was like, no. Are you serious?
I was like, okay, what's that? Like at first, when I first saw the shadow, I thought it was the Sand People warrior, and she was coming out, and she was just like, I'm pissed. Everybody's dead. I'm gonna fuck everybody up. But then, like,
I was waiting for her to come back. She never did. Yeah.
And then the next moment, I'm like, that looks like a brim tat. That looks like a brim tat. Like, fucking shit. I was like,
it's a little closer. Oh, the skin looks bluish.
My God, man. I was like, because it was Dave Filoni. I was like, we never saw. There was an unreleased episode of the Clone Wars where he and Boba Fett are in a standoff and they actually shoot each other in the head. Which explains the dent in Boba's helmet. For those of you out there, and it also explains the metal cap that was on Cad's head. And so, like, that was their moment, but it was unaired. And I don't know if I don't know if they would consider it canon, but he's got that dent in his helmet, so I would assume that, like,
and their dialogue kind of hints. Their dialogue more than hints that not only did they have a history, but that he's taught him lessons in the past. Like, he's like,
well, we saw that, like, we saw him doing that, but not quite a lot, but yeah, we saw him doing that. But like, I'm still faster than you. It was like, that may be. It was like, okay, well, even with that unreleased episode, we're like, well, you guys are kind of as fast as each other. Like, you guys shot each other at the same time. Like, it was like there was an established history here. We didn't get to see it, and then as soon as this character comes back, like, and he asks him the hard question, it's like, we didn't get an answer to that question. We didn't, or at least not a satisfying one.
What's your angle? What's the?
It's like, what's your angle? It's like, dude, you just wiped out his employers. You guys didn't need to fight. And I was like, he
told Cab Vanth, Boba Fett is a ruthless killer who used to work for the Empire. He's not this nice guy, like, why are you guys even, and that's what I wanted to know. Why is everybody aligning themselves with the new crime lord? Who is it out of pity? Because you can tell he's not good at his job? Because all you know for certain is that he killed the last crime lord, took his house, and now is going around town demanding money from everybody. How does that make him better or different than the other crime lords?
Fennec was the only one who had, like, a reasonable, like, reason to fucking be there. He's just like, oh, he saved my life. But she was like
his number 2 that was really the number 1. She was the one that spoke. She was the one that strategized. She held the meetings. It was like,
he didn't listen to her, like, at all for the most part. It's like
that one scene in episode 6 where we do see him. I was like, oh, he's back in his own show. He literally didn't even have a line.
Say anything.
He just looks and nods, and I was like,
Tamara Morrison probably got this. Tamara Morrison probably got the scripts for episodes 5 and 6, and he'd be like, I'm not in this. Did you guys kill my character? Did you guys write me out? Like, what the fuck happened?
Like, I felt when I watched that again with Maddie tonight, it felt ad-libbed. It felt like he was like, I should be talking in this scene, so I'm just gonna look around and be like, nod
Yeah.
my head.
Didn't make sense. Honestly, like when they were having their conversation at the end of this episode, I was really expecting him to say, like when he said it was like we're not cut out for this. I was hoping, like at first I thought he said I'm not cut out for this, but like I rewound
You
it.
are
And
Fennec.
he was like, yeah, it would have been like Fennec, you can handle this better than I can. And it was like I'm gonna leave you to this, but like we didn't really see a reason for him to leave this thing at all. It's like
why should we? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so like, there's so many things like,
Hold up. Going back to Cad Bane, his death was a fuck you to everybody on screen. Whether you
100%.
knew who he was or you're a brand new person was like, oh my gosh, they just introduced a new character with like boss level potential.
Dude,
This
fucking
whole
Cece was sitting next to me and she's like, whoever they made voice that guy is terrifying. I'm like, yeah,
perfect.
He's the same actor as the Clone Wars. Like, he's fucking scary as shit. Like, that was the coolest part about it.
And his standoff with Boba, he fucking treats Boba like a child. Like he took him out. And Boba is this whole episode, this whole season, Boba is trying to say, or at least the show is trying to say, that Boba is no longer this killer. In fact, when he wants the heads of the Pikes killed, the ones that killed his Sand People Tusken family, he doesn't even go do it. He sends his number 2 to go do it. Mm-hmm. So now you have this face-off between him and this brand new amazing character that we've never seen live action before, and he kills him. And I'm watching this scene and I'm like, I'm waiting for it to pan down to show that he didn't kill him, that the stick is in the sand, and he's like, get off my planet, asshole. I'm not the guy that I used to be. I'm changing, and you're not welcome here. But no, he kills him, and I'm like, you just killed a brand new character that you could have done so much more with, and you had Boba kill him, who you've been telling us is no longer a killer. So it made no sense to the scene. Like it almost proved Cad Bane's point that you haven't changed.
It did.
But that wasn't the point of the scene. It was what I took away from the scene, but it was clearly not what Disney wanted me to take away from the scene.
The best decision that they could have made with this show, and this is how I would have fixed it, and it fucking changes the show completely. But I've said this many times before, especially around the Marvel series, because this is when it normally comes up, especially in the superhero side of things, which we are very close to with Star Wars. We're very close to that same genre.
Sure.
The antagonist is only going to be as good as his protagonist. It was like the protagonist is only going to be as good as his antagonist. It's like you really need to have a good dynamic between these two people, and that didn't happen. The reason that the prequel series fell flat for me, especially, is because there wasn't a clear villain throughout all 3 episodes. It wasn't the same guy. It wasn't really a dramatized battle. It wasn't a struggle between these two people. It was like having Darth Vader as the main villain for the original trilogy made it what it was. It's like having an amazing villain throughout the entirety of at least a season of a show, hopefully multiple if my plan had been listened to, but whatever. This is what they should have done. And I'm saying this, I'm cocky. I don't give a fuck. You bring in the Pikes as like a villain, and you're seeing henchmen in the first couple episodes. You're skipping out on the Sand People shit. We didn't need to see that. It was like they could have done that with some flashbacks, but much shorter flashbacks.
They weren't even consistent with each other.
They weren't consistent with it at all. But he has some flashbacks to that are very brief, but for the most part, his issue is with the Pikes. He's trying to take over. The Pikes are causing a bunch of problems. Now, I'm saying like episode 2, maybe episode 3, that's when Cad Bane shows up. And you realize that he's working with the Pikes. He is the coordinating effort, the coordinating striker, rather than being like the bounty hunter who's doing it all himself. He's like, all right, I'm kind of coordinating this stuff, but he's still a badass. You make that very clear that he's still a badass. He has no room for failure. Some Pikes come back without the spice that Cobb Vanth decided to dump into the sea, dump into the Dune Sea. And they get back to him like, yeah, he let us keep the money, but he took the spice. And Cad fucking shoots them right then and there. It's like, I don't have room for that kind of bullshit. Whatever. Establishing badass, ruthless villain. He still is. He's got the voice for it. He's a scary fucking dude. And then you push through that out. And then him and Boba have a battle in the early half of the show, or maybe kind of like in the midpoint of the show. Like I'm talking like episode 5. And I say that we can do that on episode 5 because Mando isn't in this show. It's not his show. Fuck off, Mando. You're not in this show. It's Book of Boba Fett. It's like, I loved seeing you. I loved the story that we got with Luke and all that, but it's not your guys' show. Fuck off. Get out of here. They have their battle. Boba loses. He loses. It's like, Cad is a badass. He is a villain. He puts Boba on his ass, and Boba has to scramble a little bit in order to figure out what's going on, or he has to like remembers like, oh yeah, hey, I'm a fucking badass. You have to prove that to us, Boba Fett, and here is your obstacle. We've got a major obstacle, somebody who's already knocked you on your ass more than once, by the way. Here he is. And then the next episode, episode 6, is like, all right, we're building this up. It's like, I got handed my ass in episode 5. It's like, I got to figure this shit out. I'm going to talk to this Nikto speed biker gang who are like really struggling. They were stealing water, and they've got these badass speeder bikes that look like they belong on a desert planet, not fucking Vespas. And those guys are going to be the ones who are working with me. They're gritty dickheads. It's like, they're rough dudes, but they know their place. They've got a sense of honor. They aren't going to show up at a cafe randomly fucking trying to rape people or anything like that. We're not going to have that shit. I was like, you guys are willing to showcase them walking in and being all like that, but no, but not showing any drug abuses or anything like that. Boba finds out that they're willing to work with him. It was like, but they want to cut of the spice trade or some shit like that, and like that's going to cause some conflicts. Or maybe they had something to do with the spice trade, and he's got to work that out later. They don't figure out the spice trade problem on Tatooine with this yet, but they've got a common interest. It's like Cad Bane is the reason. Is like, he's got a reputation around Tatooine at this point. He's been coordinating an effort for the spice trade. They're like, he's fucking it up. We want a piece of that. Here we go. Boba Fett is going to give us an option for that. Meanwhile, Boba Fett, being the badass Godfather level crime lord that he is, he's just using him as a tool to get past Cad Bane and the Pikes, so he can take over that shit, and then he can do what he wants with it. And then we have season 2 where he's finally overcome Cad Bane. Like, he got through that. Cad Bane just got chased off. He didn't get killed. It was like he had to retreat. And then you realize that the Pikes were the real villain. They were just paying him. The Pikes were the real villain. They were the ones who were pushing this shit. And the reason that we know that the Pikes are the main villain here is because they have been pushing spice, which throughout the show has been established as this ridiculous drug. It's terrible. It's ravaging people, and it's majorly addictive, so they can't get off of it. They're fucked. They can't get through it at that point. Very pertinent to our current issue now. And you've got Boba Fett who's going in there. He's like, I'm tired of working for scum. It's like, really? Well, you're going to have to like dip your toes into that pool if you want to do anything about it. And then you can have a book of Boba Fett season 2 after a badass final battle in the second series. You can ride the fucking Rancor if you want. I don't give a shit. Ride the Rancor, get into a badass fight. Show me that you're a badass instead of being on your ass all the fucking time. Don't give me the Heisman Trophy fucking winner fucking pose shooting your knee rocket and your blaster out.
That was so dumb.
I didn't need to see that shit. It looked like a fucking
the
ballet
fight choreography was just dumb.
It was so weird. It was so stupid. But you give that, and then you win the respect of the people, because it was like, I understand that you want to rule with fear, but throughout that battle, you're like trying to push this away from the town, so the townsfolk aren't the ones who are being wiped out, and you become a crime lord, but a different crime lord, one of respect. But you've got a huge battle that you still have to fight with the Pikes, and also you, as the teaser for the next series, instead of seeing Cobb Vanth in a fucking Bacta tank, the teaser for the next season is you've got the Pikes having a meeting with the Hutts, who are fucking pissed that Tatooine has been lost to the Hutts. And then here you go. Fixed. Done deal. We ditched the Spy Kids crap like you were talking about. I don't need Vespa speed. If they had this on Nar Shaddaa, I would have been completely fine with the Vespa speed bike gang who are covered in fucking cybernetics. Because, like, if you're not familiar with Nar Shaddaa is like a planet full of Las Vegas level, like crazy, like they got the neon lights. It's a city planet. It's the criminal underworld prospering metropolis planet of the Star Wars universe. It would have made way more sense for it to be there. I understand why they went Tatooine this time around, but I would have, like you, I'm kind of sick of Tatooine at this point too. So it would have been cool to see some new shit.
My fixes for this show wouldn't have been as drastic. I think they had the building blocks for a good show. They just didn't execute it well. It seemed like
it's great when you have the building blocks, but you knock them out in the middle of the scene. You're shocked.
When Boba Fett came on the scene and he became the new, whatever that term, the D
daimyo.
word, daimyo. He became the new daimyo. I think it would have been better for them to focus on how, in the wake of Jabba's death, all these other crime lords came. Like Bid Fortuna might have taken over the palace, but he wasn't. They touched on it a little bit. He wasn't strong enough to take over the whole place. So all these other crime lords came in, and instead of Boba trying to be like, I'm just gonna fill Bid Fortuna's shoes, he should have came in and seen the devastation of warring crime lords, how you got 5 different crime lords in one city and what it's doing to the people. And his answer is, I'm going to take them all out, and then I'm going to be a ruler with respect. And
Boba Corleone.
The first few fight scenes you see with him, it is that slow old man fight scenes because he's old, and the fight choreography was not good. And you could say, oh, well, he hasn't healed correctly yet, and that's why he fought so terribly. Fine. Then write it so that he doesn't do most of the killing. He sends his badass mercenary assassin number 2, Fennec, like he does already, to clean house. And then the minute somebody says, are you just a puppet? Are you just for show? Then he does kill that one person and says, oh no, I am Boba Fett, bitch. I just don't want to be anymore. I want to rule with peace. I just got to get rid of the scourge. And then when he does that, then the bigger threat of the Pikes comes into play. But at this whole thing with Spice, they say later on that Spice is the main export of this planet. So it doesn't matter that the Pikes are doing it. Apparently, they've always been doing it. So it's not some new thing that's ravaging the planet. It's literally something that the crime lords did before the Pikes. And when he says no more Spice, even Fennec is like, dude, that's like the main export of this planet. You can't just make that decision, and because again, it's another decision that he makes that makes no sense. So they promised us a crime lord show where he was going to rule over the crime lords. It ended up being the one Falcone that didn't know anything, the nephew of the Godfather that somehow got to the top and then realized that he was the dumbest of the Corleone family. It was that story with Boba Fett, and that was so disappointing. And the most interesting parts of this show had nothing to do with this show. They were preludes to season 3 of Mando. The dark saber being hard to use. It's not just a sword that lights up black. It literally is something that you got to work with. It's a mind over matter type thing. Grogu choosing to be a foundling instead of a Padawan. Again, so rushed. They need him back for season 3, for the toys, for the new ship. Because
good moment if it hadn't been so fast.
So fast. Like, I would have rather that taken a while. I would have rather he not get 20 seconds of training and now all of a sudden he's worthy to be a partner to Mando. Because clearly he's not. I think he could have benefited a little more training and then gone back. I mean, Luke said it himself. A lifetime, a few years to you, a short time to you is a lifetime to someone else. So he could have done a little training and then said, hey, it is a lifetime to someone else. So I'm going to go spend Mando's lifetime with him. Then I'll come back, but that's not what we got. We just got, oh, he's already out of there. He's already done. Everything was rushed. Most of the major choices were toy related, and they wrote a crime lord story for children and then took out all the crime lord stuff because it was for children. And
we wanted Michael Corleone and we got Fredo.
we did. We so did, man. And
Like,
and
pisses me
and
off.
then by the end of it, just him walking down the street and everybody's saying, "Hey, thank you," and "Hey, have some fruit," and giving him why? What did
It's like,
he
hey, you
do?
blew up half your town
He blew up
fucking
half your town.
for
He
no
blew up
reason.
your casino. His pet went King Kong on everybody. He literally brought war to your streets. The Pikes, those crime lords, all existed before Boba Fett came back to town, and nobody uh, uh, seemed to be suffering from it. Boba Fett came, killed somebody, pissed everybody off, brought war to town, and yet he's walking in the streets and everybody's treating him like he's Santa Claus? It makes no sense. I just don't. I watched that scene and I was waiting for the final scene for someone just to be like, "Hey, good job, you won. Please leave our planet. You've shown us that we don't need crime lords in our town because all y'all do are fight with each other and you cause death. You caused the deaths of the people in the casinos. You did, Boba, because of your war with the Pikes. Had it not been for you, the Pikes literally said, 'Don't touch our spice trade. We won't touch you.' And everybody was fine with that, except
Yeah.
for you, Boba, except for you. And you caused the deaths of our people, so please leave." I was waiting for that.
Would have
But it
been
didn't
pretty
happen.
cool to have. It would have been pretty cool if Cad Bane hadn't shown up in the show at all, and then in that moment, that's when he showed up.
Mm.
And it was like right there at the end. It'd be like, "Hey, looks like you and the Pikes have a bit of a problem that they sent me to solve."
Yeah.
And then it ends in like that high noon standoff, but nobody shoots. It just cuts to black, and then you're like,
Well,
"Fuck."
either they killed him or his heart's actually in a different spot of his body and he didn't die. He was just regenerating on the ground. Either
I
way,
wonder what the beeping was. Did you like the beeping on
I
his
did
armor?
see
I'm
that.
wondering if that was like because he's got some cybernetics, like
He
so. I'm
did.
wondering if he isn't like wasted, like he's rebooting.
I would hope not, but
He's got his droid helper, like from the Clone Wars, I'm sure. So like, our droid helper is like probably like a safety beacon or something like that. Maybe I don't know.
oh, speaking of droids, the BD moment was cool.
Oh, I fucking love that. That was so cute. I was so happy to see that. I was like, oh shit, Fallen Order is real. Oh my god.
While I love the Cad Bane moments and I love the Cobb Vanth moments and there was two other things in the finale that did make sense. One, when Boba was getting mad when Cad Bane told him who really killed the people, he went for his gun and Fennec goes, "Don't do it," and he says, "But he killed Cab Vanth." Boba's never met Cab Vanth. Why would he?
Yeah.
Why? Like I was waiting for Mando to say, "No, do it. He killed my friend." But Boba says that, and I'm like, "You've never even met him." And then there was another point where you could just tell the writing was sloppy. They were pinned down, and the chick from Yellow Jackets is like, "If I can get up there, I can be a sniper." So they give her a rifle, and the other chick goes with her. They
we
get
just
up to the
established that those shields aren't going anywhere. Like it doesn't matter the fucking angle.
But,
like you're not butting through that.
They get up there. They have a bird's eye view of all the bad guys. Instead of just sniping away, the Yellow Jackets chick tells the other girl, "Okay, you start sniping people. I'll distract the mechs." So the sniper gets two people, then she shoots the mech, and the mech looks up and sees them and starts firing. I was like, what was the point of that?
It's like, fuck you guys. Now you're both in cover.
I'll tell the mechs where we are. That's what it was. Yeah. But
it would have been really cool to be like, hey, I've got this cybernetic implant. I can get through those shields. I just need to get behind it or something like that. Help me out here. No, nothing. No point in those cybernetics at all, other than having Thundercat in the show for some fucking reason.
There were some cool elements with Cad Bane, but I hope that season 3 of Mando is okay. We've done the Western genre. Now let's do something else. I think we've gotten with Mando 1, Mando 2, and now Boba, we've gotten every single Star Wars version of Western culture down. I mean, we had the standoffs. We had the who's going to go for their gun first. You know, Timothy Oliphant or Cad Bane. Who's going to go for the gun first? Boba or Cad Bane. We've had all the showdowns. We don't need every piece of Star Wars to be Western themed. Mando season 3 can be more sci-fi themed and get into Mando lore and less Western lore. Like, I feel like it's been done enough now. It was kind of cool. Mando season 1, we're like, oh, that's kind of cool. There's got a Western feel to it. Mando season 2, okay, we still got a Western feel to it.
Well, it makes sense to keep it up for that show. I mean, I was like,
yeah, but Boba Fett, okay, we've got it's so much a Western. Like, the only thing we don't have is people walking around with spurs on their boots.
Yeah,
we can move past it. We can move past
it. We even got this. We even got the townsfolk uprising against the
Freetown. Freetown, and we got the big bad wearing a brimmed hat. Like, I get it. We can move on from Western now. You find one thing that's cool, and then you drive it down to the ground, and then you continue driving it 6 feet under until everybody's like annoyed by it.
Unfortunately, this is as far as I can go for tonight. I got a bunch of shit I got to prepare for. Like, we literally got approved for the house today.
Well, I'm glad we could talk about this. I'm glad we took this is instead of a week or 2 weeks later, we talk about it the day the finale comes out. So good job, Seth.
Yeah, that was right out there. No, but I was on board, but I had to do it now. Like, I had to do it now because I have 2 weeks before we have to like start moving our other stuff, and so like I've got a much shorter period than I would have been prepared to move house. So I was like, all right. The final episode comes out tonight. I know we've got a lot that you want to like, because we want to kick off like right away. I'm saying, I know you want to do this, but like if we're gonna watch this, like now has to be the time. Mm-hmm. And if I make Josh wait until March when we like revitalize everything to talk about this show, he's gonna have me beheaded. So like, I was like, I've already made you wait to talk about the Matrix for like an eternity at this point.
Oh gosh, that's right. That's right. I'm so done with that. I mean, I'm excited for what's to come. I think this was a failed opportunity. There were some good things in it. Even watching things again with Maddie, I saw set pieces that were cool. Like, even real quick, the bar in Freetown, she noticed it before I did. They had the rib cage of that dragon in the bar, and I was like, so cool. That's cool. Like, that is little things that make a regular scene better. And I was like, that is lore. That's world building. You know,
I want to know how the Jawas got the skull up on their collar.
I know.
How the fuck do you guys get that up there?
They're resourceful. You know.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm sure they got some tricks, but shit.
I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for the future. If they do a Boba Fett season 2, I believe they're going to retcon that all the Tusken people are dead, because that makes no sense.
Of course they're not. There's no way they are. But
they literally said that. They're like, they're all dead. No, they're not. You killed 20 of them. Like, are you serious? Like,
yeah,
that was a small sect.
We're talking about a planet. We're talking about a planet full of Tusken Raiders. There's no fucking way.
I think they're gonna make some changes, and I swear it said series finale, but I'm thinking now they're like, we could turn this into a season, a longer. We can do a season 2 and we can fix things.
I'm excited for the future on the basis that they learn from this misstep. Like, I really want,
and I think enough people are talking about the misstep that they would have to.
Fucking hope so. I hope that enough people are talking about this to the same degree, because I haven't seen any reviews, so I don't know. Like, I'm really hoping that I'm not running into a bunch of other people's videos where they're just like, oh my god, this was so good because of the fan service that was in it. And it was like, I loved seeing Luke. I loved seeing Luke's Yoda training moment. I loved seeing him run through with Grogu on his back. Oh my god, we got
plenty of defenders out there that are like, if you have one negative thought, you're a toxic fan or you're entitled. Yeah, and it's you can be a fan of things and have issues with their execution. I think that's
exactly what's going on right now. That's exactly what's going on right now.
And we're not the only ones. I have seen other people.
We're the exact same way about the sequel trilogy, by the way. It was like, yeah, it's down there for me, but there's stuff to praise about there's stuff to praise about every single piece of Star Wars content. I just don't want them to continue putting in that level of effort into making sure that like they're telling a mediocre story or a messy story with a couple of fan service cameos thrown in and being like, okay, well, we've got the reaction channels reacting. Like, I can't wait to watch the channels reactions to Cad Bane. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, right.
But if they are like, oh, we've gotten that, like, then we're good. Like, people are going to watch our show because like a bunch of YouTubers are talking about it and be like, it's like, no, I'm sitting here right now telling you is like, hey, take it with a grain of salt. This series was not great. I saw that meme. I was laughing so hard. I was like, that's so good.
I made this one. I was happy to make this one. There were so many great things about the show, but the best parts of it were for another show. And it was so blatant that they were more invested in Mando's story than Boba Fett. And so just do Mando. Don't waste our time with Boba if you clearly don't have time to give him a good story.
Honestly, watch episodes 5 and 6 and then watch Mando season 3.
Oh my gosh, that's it. Yeah. Like literally, that's it. Because that is where all the money and all the writing went to, was those 2 episodes.
Yeah, that's all you need.
That's all you need.
Pedro Pascal probably wasn't even on set for this shit. They probably had him doing the voiceover and that was it. They were done. Like,
and now that he's no longer a Mandalorian because he took off his helmet, do you think we're gonna get another Pedro face in this series?
No,
I don't think we'll ever see it again. Which means less work for Pedro Pascal, which was part of the drama of the
I think they're gonna
rumored drama.
I think they're gonna go a different way. I think that they're going to I think that he's going to abandon his creed in the next series. I think he's going to be given. I think he's going to be given a choice. Is like you can keep Grogu or you can follow the creed.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah. Not fully abandon the creed, but I think he's going to like become like the type of Mando was like, what's the deal with keeping keeping the helmet on all the time? It's like if it's between me and like continuing to be with Grogu or something like that. Like he's done it once, he's going to do it again.
Oh, I thought it was clear in episode 6 that they were, or no, episode 5 that they were setting it up a him and Grogu adventure to Mandalore. I think that's what season 3 is going to be about, because they said, he said, "How can I redeem myself?" And they said, "You can only do it in the waters of
the mines or something.
The mines of Mandalore." And I think that's what season 3 is going to be about: is him and Grogu finding.
Yeah, I certainly think that he's going to try, but I think he's gonna come across like a different reason.
Because he's got that saber. Like, it's either he gives it up to what's her face, to Bo-Katan, and then literally like abandons all things Mandalorian. He seems remorseful. He seems like, I fucked up and I need to fix this. I can't imagine him being mad and saying, "Oh, screw those guys." I feel like he's gonna take.
I don't think of it like that. I think that if anything, he's going to start his own creed, and he's gonna follow a different. He's going to follow a different set of rules as the rightful ruler of Mandalore, and instead of being the ruler of the planet, he's going to be like, I'm the leader of my sect of Mandalorians, and it's like you won't take your. It was like you're not going to unmask to unless it's inside the clan. It's like outside of the creed, your helmet can't come off. It was like, but like if you're amongst the creed, other followers of the creed, like, yeah, it was like, because we need to have these bonds, because he's got this bond with Grogu, and it's been so strong for him. And it's like, and that was his like defining moment, was showing Grogu his face, and
that little jump hug from Grogu. Oh,
that's so adorable. It was so cute.
Shouldn't
have been in this series, but I'm glad I saw it.
Then we'll see which of us wins here. That'll be our bet. It seems like you believe that we'll see him again. I don't believe we'll ever see Pedro Pascal's face again, unless he dies. Unless there's a finale of this series where he dies, I don't ever see us seeing his face again. I think they wrote it in because this will make his job so much more easier. He will literally never have to be on set again. And that was some of the rumored issues that they were talking about in season 2 is that, he was
just having to be on set all the time, but never seeing his face.
Yeah, like why? And I kind of get it. Like after a point, it's like why can't I just do my lines and you just use the guy that you use for half the scenes anyway? Nobody else can tell.
I can see it going that direction as well, but I feel like with the established history that we have already, where like his defining moment is like letting Grogu see his face. Yeah. I feel like that's going to be a thing where like that would be a part of his creed, and it'd be like, hey, this is a new sect of Mandalorians. We need to be able to know each other. And it's like, because it's going to help us trust each other better, or it's going to help with the connection. It's going to make the creed stronger, instead of being like, oh, you took your helmet off. I was like, honestly, I don't know what to I don't know what to expect at this point. I hope that that's the direction that they go.
Well, I know you got to get going, so it was good talking to you about this. Thanks to everybody for joining us and those that watch. I think we're excited to see what comes next from Disney Plus. Now that we're in 2022, there's a lot of Marvel content coming down the line.
We've got Obi-Wan, Bad Batch season 2, and Andor coming this year.
Yeah. Well, and Mandalorian by the end of the year, right?
Yeah, and then season 3 at the end of the year.
And they've already greenlit Andor for season 2. That means that they've invested in that show. I'm getting more and more excited for that show.
They focus grouped it enough, and people were loving it that much. Honestly, I'm pretty excited to see that one because we don't know shit about his character other than his finale ending. Right. But like we know.
But I loved his
character. We know how I really want to see how dark that motherfucker will go, because his entrance in Rogue One was brilliant. My gosh.
He's a good guy that killed his informant because
he's a true anti-hero. Like that's the character I needed to fucking see. But if he's gonna get the Disney treatment that we got in this show, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway.
But, thanks, Nerfers. Thanks for catching this episode, Nerfers. Stay tuned. We are going to be coming back. I'm going to have a new setup that doesn't look weird with like the terrible overblown lamp in the background and like stuff that you can't see. I'm going to be moving house. I'm going to bring you guys some new content. I'm going to have free time to do all sorts of crazy shit. Me and Josh are going to get together more. We need to I need to get tickets for Batman so you and I can go see that together. That'd be fucking badass. But we're gonna be bringing you guys some new content this year. 2022 is gonna be the year of Nerf Herders Assemble. I hope you guys are along for the ride.
Comic-Con with me, so
yeah, we're going to Comic-Con together. That's gonna be crazy good. We'll definitely have some footage of that for you guys. So stay tuned, subscribe so you don't have to worry about missing out on the year of the Nerf Herder. Hit that like button if you like this video. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Be honest, we can take it. Leave us your comments down below. Let us know what you guys thought of this episode. Try and keep it spoiler free. It is the comment section. We don't want people getting all scrambled off, or at least make sure that people have to hit see more before they catch those spoilers. I'm Seth. That's Josh. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, have a good one.
See.